Bom, muito boa tarde. Em nome da ABIMED, eu faço com muito orgulho, dou as boas-vindas a essa palestra magna da ABIMED, Associação Brasileira da Alta Tecnologia em Produtos para a Saúde. Quando nós pensamos nessa palestra magna, nós pensamos em nos encaixarmos no que está acontecendo no mundo, dessa transformação que a gente está vivendo, o impacto disso da indústria, como a indústria está se posicionando, quais são as demandas médicas. E nós tivemos a grata felicidade de encontrarmos o Dr. Rafael Grossmann, da Singularity University, que vem fazer uma palestra. O Dr. Rafael, vou ler um pequeno currículo dele. Ele nasceu em Caracas, Venezuela, fez residência nos Estados Unidos, especializou-se em cirurgia geral, trauma, laparoscopia avançada e cirurgia robótica, que exerce hoje no estado de Maine, nos Estados Unidos, onde ele vive. Ao longo de sua carreira, dedicou-se a aliar o poder da tecnologia a uma assistência médica melhor e mais humanizada, que é o que queremos para todos nós. Foi um dos primeiros exploradores mundiais do Google Glass, os óculos inteligentes de realidade aumentada lançados pela empresa, e pioneiro em utilizá-lo ao vivo durante uma cirurgia. Rafael foi também, em diversas ocasiões, palestrante do TEDx, uma organização dedicada ao lema "As ideias que merecem ser compartilhadas" e que mudam o mundo. Entre os palestrantes que já participaram do TED estão Bill Gates, o renomado designer Philip Stark e o ex-primeiro-ministro britânico Gordon Brown. Foi aluno e atualmente é professor da Singularity University, foi da onde nós conseguimos chegar até o Rafael, e da Exponential Medicine, uma iniciativa desenvolvida pela instituição que reúne periodicamente professores, inovadores e organizações do mundo, todos ligados à biomedicina e tecnologia, para explorar e alavancar a convergência entre as novas tecnologias, com o objetivo de reinventar o futuro da saúde e da medicina. A nossa dinâmica hoje aqui vai ser assim: o Rafael vai falar por volta de 1 hora, ele vai fazer a exposição dele, e a gente quer aproveitar o máximo de tempo aqui. Vamos fazer um pequeno debate. Nós estamos convidando, num primeiro momento, para o debate, autoridades ligadas à área hospitalar, que é a Denise Santos, que é a CEO da Beneficência Portuguesa, a doutora Mariana Perroni, que é coordenadora médica da área de Healthcare Transformation na IBM, e que também coordenou a unidade de Watson Health na América Latina. Ela tem tudo a ver com o nosso tema aqui. E para representar a indústria, a gente convida o Renato Carvalho, que é o CEO da Philips do Brasil e também presidente e anfitrião, aqui é o presidente do conselho da ABIMED. Então, é com muito prazer, eu esqueci de falar que o Daniel Greca da KMPG vai coordenar esse primeiro debate. Após esse debate de 20, 25 minutos, nós vamos abrir para perguntas de vocês, do público. Basta levantar a mão, a pessoa vai levar um formulário, vocês façam, por gentileza, a pergunta por escrito. Então, é com muito prazer que eu peço para subir ao palco aqui o Dr. Rafael Grossmann, que já agradecemos agora e vamos ter a oportunidade, sem dúvida, de agradecer ao final da sua brilhante palestra.
Obrigado, Carlos. Obrigado, ABIMED. Obrigado, Hospitalar. É um prazer estar aqui. Uma honra estar aqui. So my name is Rafael Grossmann, and I'm a surgeon. I'm a full-time surgeon. That's what my real job is. I think it's very important for me as a communicator of the message of how to use technology in a smart way in order to improve what we do in medicine, in healthcare, and in medical education. It is very important for me to be practicing medicine, because if I weren't practicing medicine, then it would be really a message that I couldn't identify with. So I have been a keynote speaker of sorts and a TEDx speaker for a few years. One of the things that changed my life was when I contacted the Singularity University, and I attended the exponential medicine program. It's the healthcare track for Singularity University, and that's where I met Google Glass. Any of you have ever seen Google Glass? Anyone raise hands who've seen Google Glass? Google Glass, it's really an incredible machine. This is the second version of Google Glass, and basically it's like a computer and a smartphone in front of your eyes. It doesn't block your vision. It's got a little screen in there, and I'll show you a little video in a minute. And the screen is like the computer or the smartphone screen. You can talk to the computer and give commands. You can touch the side of the glass. And so it's just one glass cube. And it's really sort of an intelligent machine. You're connected to the internet. You can take pictures. You can take video. You can live stream video. So it's really a fantastic invention. I met the inventor of Google Glass at Exponential Medicine, and I cornered him. And I told him, this machine it can really change the way we do medicine and the way we teach medicine. So a few months after that, I got one, and I used it for the first time. And the rest is history. This is just a brief video, so you can see how it works.
Tap the touchpad to wake up glass. You should see the display above your line of sight. Adjust it to see everything. The home screen shows a clock. This is your timeline. It's a row of cards.
So it's almost like the rear view mirror in a car when you're driving. You're not watching the mirror when you're driving. You only watch it when you need to see what's behind you. It's the same concept in this little screen. So I did that first operation with Google Glass, live streamed the operation through my perspective to a group of students, and I just wanted to have my students learn in a better way, learn from me during the operation in a better way. So I did the operation. I didn't think much about it. And then a friend of mine in Forbes wrote a blog post in Forbes, and after a couple hours, he had like 65,000 views, and people went crazy because Google Glass was very sexy those days, and everyone was talking about Google Glass, and having it used in surgery was really, I guess, a big deal. So I saw the power of using technology to really improve the way students learn. So if you've ever been in the operating room, as a patient or as a provider, you can see that the way we teach surgery is the same way we did it in the 17, 16, 1800s. It's an auditorium, and you are watching. And when I have students behind me, when I operate, the students are behind me trying to see what I'm seeing. So for them, it's really difficult to learn. So Google Glass offers them the perspective of what I am doing, the procedure that I'm doing, and I can talk to them, I can ask them questions, they can ask me questions, I can answer their questions, they can try to answer my questions, and they're sitting comfortably in a room anywhere in the world. So that's the simple potential, one of them, for a smart glass like Google Glass. So that got me thinking, and I started thinking, well, we can use this as a digital assistant. During surgery, you have to have so many things in your mind that you should not miss. And Google Glass can be a digital assistant, almost like a Google Now for health, or a Siri, or a Cortana for help in healthcare. So it's a proof of concept, but it's very, very real. So we've been using Google Glass in different applications in healthcare. Any of you familiar with this movie? You guys remember that movie, right? Terminator. That's about 25, almost 30 years ago. And look at this. It's a computer rendering of augmented reality. And this is what science fiction said, 25, 30 years ago. And that's a reality today. So in the case of Google Glass, it can empower us to be better physicians. In the US, everything is electronic. So I meet you as a physician, and then I turn my back, and I start putting the information in the computer, and separates me from you as a physician. So Google Glass and one of the other smart glasses can really close that gap between the physician or the provider and the patient, trying to make the interaction a little bit more human, a little more humane, a little better. So Google Glass can potentially have me sitting in front of the patient, and someone is seeing what I'm seeing and listening what I'm listening to and populating the digital health record, the electronic health record, or the electronic medical record. And then populate the computer so I don't have to worry about the computer. All I have to do is focus on my patient, face to face, eye to eye, looking and listening to you and close to you and touching you without having to worry about the technology and all the regulations that they ask us to put in the system for the EMR, for the EHR. So it's just using the technology in a smart way. This is the way we round. When we do our rounds in the morning at 5, 6 in the morning, we have a paper with all our patients' names in there. And then we go room to room and we write little notes in the paper for us. That is prehistoric. That is ridiculous. We are one of the most advanced hospitals in the world with everything technologically advanced and digital records. And then at the time of interacting with the patient, we have to write in a piece of paper, sitting in a computer for an hour, putting all the vital signs and all the lab results and everything, and then go walk around with our piece of paper, like in the time of Gutenberg. It's crazy. So we can use the technology to improve on this. This is a proof of concept from my friend from Radboud University, Lucien Engelin. So Google Glass helping us, identify data in that patient. You have the Google Glass connected to your electronic record. And if you show me something and I'm not very familiar with it because I'm a surgeon, maybe I don't know about that, I can call a colleague who could be in Brasilia or in Sao Paulo, some expert about skin cancer, and then, empower me as a physician to have, better healthcare, to give better healthcare. So I saw the power of communicating, and I see this as a duty, as a responsibility as a surgeon, to be an educator and a communicator, going around the world telling people insights and experiences so people can really spark their imaginations in order to have something change the way healthcare is today. So I created a blog, which is now a website, and it's completely non-commercial. And by the way, I don't have any commercial or financial relationships with any of the companies that I talk about here. It's all out of my passion for technology. And I'm very active in Twitter. So I use Twitter to communicate and to get information as much as I can. So healthcare, just briefly about healthcare, because this is a hospital, all right? It's a conference on healthcare. So healthcare is in deep trouble. No matter where you look in the world, healthcare is really a little bit of a disaster, especially in the U.S. In the U.S., healthcare is one of the most shameful fields I see. And as a provider, as a physician, I can really attest to that. And the problem with healthcare is that it's a basic human right, but we don't treat it as a human right. We treat it as a political tool, as a political weapon, and people fight and the economy of healthcare, and we completely forget about the human part of healthcare. We forget about the patient, the one that ultimately should benefit from healthcare, and that is a problem. That is a problem, and the problem is not based on money, on the cost. For example, in the U.S., 18% of the GDP, of the gross domestic product, in 1 year is spent in healthcare. And that's an old figure from 2009. It's probably closer to 20%. So we spent almost $3 trillion in the U.S. in 1 year in healthcare related, and still the United States have almost number 30 in regards to healthcare in the industrialized world. That is a shame. And the major problem in healthcare is the human connection. I think that's really the main reason why healthcare is in deep, deep trouble, at least in the United States, but I think probably in most of the world, because we have lost the humane part. It needs to be humane and it needs to be human. And I really, really think, I'm really passionate about this, that technology, if we use it in a smart way, technology can really empower us to have better medicine, better healthcare, more human and more humane healthcare. I think that's really, really important. And it's just not the technology, but thinking differently, right? Innovating, thinking out of the box, disrupting, changing the paradigms, changing how we have done things, for 100 years. We need to be, smart enough, creative enough to really, really be able to change the system. Otherwise, the system stays the same. I love this a phrase of a creative disruption, or Eric Topol. If you guys have read Eric Topol, T-O-P-O-L, if you haven't, I recommend you do. He's a cardiologist who's a digital futurist as well, digital health futurist. And Eric Topol wrote The Creative Destruction of Medicine. It's a fantastic book. And then his second book, a few years later, was The Patient Will See You Now. So imagine, the patient, not the physician will see you now, but the patient will see you now. How to use technology to improve what we do in healthcare. That's really, really important. Nicolás Negroponte was one of the founders of the MIT Media Lab from the US in Cambridge, in MIT. And he went to Venezuela, and after 2 days in Venezuela, and I said already that I'm from Venezuela, right? So 2 days in Venezuela, he told my brother, you Venezuelans are a little different. I think that you guys, this healthy disrespect for authority. And I really love that phrase, because I think that in order to be an innovator and to be creative, you really have to have a little bit, at least, of healthy disrespect for authority to be able to impact and change the paradigms. So I forgot to bring my first phone. I have this Motorola, the 3800 Motorola TAC phone, and it's an amazing device that weighed almost 2.5 kilos, and only you could make phone calls with that. So imagine where we have gone in just, this is in 73, Mr. Cooper, and then to this little device, the iPhone that is about 10 years old, that is really powerful as any computer that we had, 10 or 15 years ago. And that is quite amazing, because technology develops exponentially. An iPhone 10, the X, the 10, that has technologies that we don't even know how to use yet. This face recognition, we use it to unlock the phone, but imagine the potential in healthcare for face recognition, to recognize depression, to recognize anxiety, to recognize pain. So imagine how you can use these technologies in healthcare. The only limit, the only obstacle, the only hurdle is really how creative we are. Our imagination is really the only obstacle. So I'm from Venezuela, so I don't like to talk about revolutions. I talk only about evolution, our evolution. So this is a little bit of a give of what I think of technology. We had these huge computers, right? And now the computers have migrated to be these very pocket-sized computers that can do things that we don't even use 10% of the power of those little machines. So I think that for education and for healthcare, we can really, really change the world if we think in a smart way. So I was talking to someone earlier, and to Simone, who's translated in the back, and I appreciate their good job, and talking about how it's really a change of culture. We have these devices, and it's changing humanity. It's changing humanity because if you have a minute off, everyone is going to get their phones, and they're going to start, and we are all like focused on it. We forget to be human, because we really almost changing the way we behave, the way we walk. We see in healthcare a lot of patients with back and upper back and neck pain, because everyone is plastered to their screens. As soon as they have 1 second left, boom, they go to the screens. And that is really a change of culture, a change of how we use things in a different way. So I'm from Venezuela, and one of my early experiences as a medical student and then as a physician was in the Amazon. So this is a view of some part of the Amazon, in the Venezuelan Amazon, and we use telemedicine quite a bit. Telemedicine, and you can see, it's a very rural area. No water, no electricity maybe a generator, but we have telemedicine. So using technology in a smart way to connect a rural and underserved area to, the most brilliant minds in medicine in the world. Not just to treat, but to prevent and to educate. So that is very, very important. So that's how my passion for telemedicine started. And in the U.S., where I live now, in Maine, in the northeast U.S., almost bordering the northern hemisphere there, right next to the... My wife said the North Pole, but it's really not the North Pole. It's just Canada and Nova Scotia. We use telemedicine, and we have these huge screens, and these huge screens, right, we can see everything that they're doing 100, 200 miles away, because they have cameras, and we can guide them. If someone is in a trauma, if they get shot, or they have a fall or a big accident, they can call us, and we can see what they're doing, and we can guide them to prevent errors. And when the patient comes to us for treatment, for ultimate treatment in the big trauma center, then they can see back, and they can educate themselves of how do we do, how can improve our performance by seeing what these experts do, 200 miles away. So that's really, really important. So we had the big screens, and now we have portable screens and these portable little cards. You can actually connect these little cards wirelessly, and you can bring them anywhere in the hospital. And from my hospital, I can see and I can manage, I can drive the camera 100, 300 miles away from my little cart. So it's really, really augmenting us as providers and as educators. So this cart can move anywhere in the hospital. And if you're in a little small hospital in a rural area, they can really, really empower the local providers to be better caregivers and better learners. So that we thought, oh, that's pretty advanced. That's great. But you know, there's so many other technologies that we have today, and some of them that are being created, and they're not out yet, but we can think with an imagination that has no limits, right? We see this rendering of a drone, right? And a drone imagine, you know, in one of the, I was going to say rush hour, but it seems like in Sao Paulo, every hour is rush hour, right? So rush hour in Sao Paulo, and you have a crash, and then, you know, basically you have this drone that comes in, you know, and has a set of tools to save a patient. You know, this is the proof of concept. Obviously, that's not real, but it is becoming real, you know, because you have, for example, in Dubai, they already have a flying taxi, and it's an unmanned, you know, without a driver, flying taxi. So from a taxi to an ambulance to an Amazon delivery, there's really not much, right? It's just thinking creatively. And this has happened. This is not a proof of concept. This is not, you know, to fake your eyes. This is not fake news. I come from the United States. Remember, fake news is a big topic there. So this is real. And you could bring a provider to the scene by passing all the traffic by using a drone that can carry a human, or maybe a human and 2 or 3 other humans, you know, as an ambulance, as a flying ambulance. So it's thinking different, thinking you cannot maybe fly a human, but you can fly equipment. Let's say someone is in an area where there's no facilities nearby and someone has a cardiac arrest. And this one has a little bit of volume, but doesn't really matter. But you can have a drone drop a defibrillator and give you instructions to how to use the defibrillator, the same ones that we have on the walls in many places, and then you can potentially save a life, you know, using technology like drone technology to improve care, to improve healthcare, right? So that is pretty easy to imagine. And this video, it's really, it's about 4 minutes long. I won't let the whole video go, but this is in Africa. This is a company from Silicon Valley that started about 2 years ago as a startup, and now they're saving hundreds of lives in Africa. They have this drone delivery service, and I'll probably go to the next video and show you a little bit better. But you can see how this is rural care. This could be the Amazon in Venezuela. This could be an underserved area in Brazil, in Latin America, in Asia, anywhere in the world. And you know, people need care, and they can't get care because there's not enough providers. There's not enough of us to care for the growing population of patients. So if you think of how to use technology to improve on that, then these people thought, well, why don't we use drones to deliver blood? One of the biggest causes of death was maternal fetal death because they have no blood products. And a little village in the middle of nowhere, they cannot have enough, you know, blood in the blood bank to save someone's life if they have hemorrhage after having a baby, right? So why don't we just deliver blood? So they started thinking about this, and they created this zip line system where it's a drone that is like a drone and a jet that GPS location based can drop blood, and they can have 2 parking spaces accuracy from dropping the blood. Imagine that. So they started using this, and this video going to show you how they do it. Boom, they drop it, and they do about 50 deliveries a day. But they could have 500 deliveries a day. They could have 5,000 deliveries a day. They could be all over the world. And we're not talking Amazon delivering a package, you know, a new cell phone or, you know, a pair of sneakers. We're talking about blood that is life-saving for patients. So this company is rocketing, and anyone who follows the step of this company really economically and financially could be a success. But most importantly, you could really, really help someone in a real way, using technology, again, in a smart fashion. So we thought when the iPhone 4 came out with FaceTime, I thought, well, you know, I called my mother via FaceTime from Maine to Venezuela, and why am I using this big computer to connect with the doctor 200 miles away? Let's use the phone. So we started a pilot using the smartphones to connect to 18 hospitals in rural Maine. And then we couldn't afford the smartphones. Imagine in the US, because the smartphone was, a few $100s. We used iPod Touch device, which has video and audio and Wi-Fi. So $200, I delivered them to a few hospitals, and we started doing the same connection that we had in the program, in the telemedicine program, but with a little pocket device. I could have had, be having breakfast in the cafeteria, and they called me on the beeper, and I just go and connect, and I guide the doctor or the nurse or the provider on how to better care for that particular patient, way, way far from where I am. So it's really, again, smart use of technology. So in the operating room, right, I'm a surgeon. So most of the times I'm operating in the operating room, and, we use basic things like a knife and gowns. And, you go to the surgical area here for Hospitalar, and there's hundreds of products that we use in the OR. So it's very, very crowded, very packed, So we think about using smart glasses or augmented reality or virtual reality glasses in the operating room. And that's another tool that we have to adjust to in order to provide better care. So that's going very slowly, but it's definitely going. And a smart glass like HoloLens, for example, which I'll show you in a minute, has a definite role in improving how we care, how we diagnose, and how we educate in medicine in general, but especially in surgery. So talking about VR, or virtual reality, and augmented reality. You all know what virtual reality and augmented reality are, like in general, right? So it's a lot of definitions that don't really matter. Virtual reality, you have a digital rendering of a space, right? Nothing is real. It's all digitally created. And then you could have augmented reality, where you have just a live streaming or a recording of the real view with augmented digital reality, with messages, like I showed with the Google Glass, right? You can have that giving you information about the real world, but on top of it. That's what's augmented reality. And then you have mixed reality, which is kind of a mix of the two of them. And so we call this spatial computing. It's not spatial like being very special, but spatial computing. We have four phases of computing. We had the MS-DOS computing, where you had the characters. You had to program that. That's the first phase. And then you had the graphic interface, where you have like the Apple desktop with all the icons, and that's what we call the graphic interface. Then we had the touch interface, like we have in the smartphones and we have in the tablets. And then the fourth stage of computing is what we call spatial computing, where you can do all your computing in the physical space through a device like, for example, HoloLens. So it's really a phenomenal technology in order to give us a desktop without limits, augmented, virtual, and mixed, like we've never seen before. So in the operating room, like I said, it's very crowded. We have, all this equipment, we have all these people, all this noise. To add another tool, imagine, you have, someone has a loop, so someone has a light, someone is recording. So to have another tool is really not that easy. So that's why the adoption has been really slow. We sometimes have such a very, very small spaces, and we augment that with microscopes. But imagine adding a device like this to the picture. So it's really, really not that easy. I don't know if you've seen this movie, if it's here in Brazil yet. This is a Real Player One. It's a depiction by Steven Spielberg of what augmented reality is. Is this movie in Brazil yet? Real Player One? So it's science fiction, but I tell you, this is very fascinating, because this is very much the way you can use one of these devices to immerse yourself in virtual reality and completely forget about the real world in a way. And you can do it for silly reasons, for entertainment, for other things, but you can do it for learning. You can do it for education. You can do it for healthcare-related matters in a way that we've never seen before. So the Google Cardboard came out, a few years ago, and it's about $5. You get this cardboard, then you put your phone, with an app that is usually free in here, right? And then you put this on, and you immerse yourself in this reality that is just like Real Player One. For about $5, a smartphone that most of you have one or two or three of those in your pockets for sure, and and then, go about doing something very different than you did, before you had the Google Cardboard. So it's really a revolutionary tool. And you have people of all sorts, of all levels of education, of all ages, where you can, have a transformation of how they connect to the internet or they connect to the digital world. My friend Shafi Ahmed, who's also a surgeon in the UK, and he has a company called Medical Realities. And he thought of doing an operation in virtual reality and streaming it to the world, to anyone who wanted to watch. So the hospital, Bard Hospital in the UK in London, they gave the students, each one of the students, instead of being in the operating room or in the big auditorium out on top of the OR, they basically gave them a viewer like this one with their smartphones and a free app, and then they went to do an operation, except that there was a camera, a 360-degree camera, that was live streaming the operation, a real colectomy, a laparoscopic colectomy. It was only a 2-minute delay, just in case something went wrong, because it was a real patient. Patient got consent and permission, and then they did the operation, took a couple of hours. They were doing the operation like they did it always. The only thing, there was a camera. After the operation, they did the statistics, They checked how many people had logged in. We'll probably have a few people. They had 55,000 people all over the world watching and listening that operation. So virtually there were people inside that room, 55,000 of them plus the team that was operating. The power of that to learn. Imagine if you're a patient, if your family is having surgery, if you want to learn how to do an operation better. So they created this application called Medical Realities that basically allows virtual reality and augmented reality to completely and radically redesign the way you learn surgery. You being a patient, a medical student, a surgeon, or whatnot. So it's a platform that is agnostic to most of the devices out there, and it's basically free. So again, the smart use of technology to improve how we learn and how we educate. This is the first augmented reality goggles in MIT in the 60s. So heavy that you had a cable, otherwise you'll break your neck. Really, really heavy. And because virtual reality is not new. It's been going on since the 60s or even earlier than that. But now things are certainly a little bit different, of course, because technology goes exponentially, This is the HTC Vive, which is a completely immersive virtual reality device, like the Oculus is, for example. And this is something that available for just a few $100s. And now the new Oculus device that needs no cables, the one that Facebook, because they bought Oculus, this kid created Oculus, and 2 years later, they bought it from him, Facebook did, for more than $1 billion. A kid who was like 19 or 21 years old. So this is now 2 years later, without cables. So you don't need those cables. You don't need the one cable. You completely immerse yourself in augmented or virtual reality with one of these. And this is less than $200. Imagine that. It's really massifying the ability of people anywhere almost in the world to buy this. Obviously not everywhere, but imagine, before it was $600, and a couple of years later it's less than $200, and pretty soon it's probably going to be free. Absolutely it's going to be free. So again, improving access. Any of you have tried an Oculus or an HTC device? This is amazing. If you go there and you completely immerse yourself in that reality, you wouldn't believe it. Your mind completely is tricked. You do not believe that you are just, in a fake reality. People do not, they hesitate because they think they're going to fall. So created for fun, for entertainment. But then people thought, if you can really trick the brain, how about if we start treating phobias? People fear of heights, or fear of spiders, or fear of piranhas, or whatever you have, you're afraid of. And people is doing it. We have people all over the world who is using this as a medical tool, not FDA device, so not a medical device. So it's good for one way. Thing is, Anvisa? So not Anvisa device, right? But it's a device that has an impact in how we care for patients. Because at Cedars-Sinai in LA, in France, in Holland, many places they're using this during surgery. And my friend, for example, in Cedars-Sinai, Dr. Brennan Spiegel, he did a study, 2,500 patients treated during perioperative, before, during, and after surgery. And they decreased the use of narcotics and anxiolytics 50% by just putting a device on the patients and showing them a specially designed application to completely distract them from the reality. So they forgot themselves in the actual room. They thought, that they are at home or they are camping or they are, in the waterfall. It's a really, really a medical tool. And this is just the beginning. This is less than a year old. So imagine the potential of this to radically treat patients without drugs. In the U.S., as you know, we have a opioid crisis. The abuse of opioids is we only seen the tip of the iceberg. So this is a tool that potentially can help prevent and definitely treat this problem in a very real way. From little ones, babies, to grandma and grandpa, using these devices to improve their healthcare experience. So, and this, again, is just the beginning. So you have, like I said before, science fiction, Everything that happens in Hollywood happens 10, 20 years later in real life. So I always say, if you want to be a good healthcare futurist, all you have to do is watch a lot of Hollywood sci-fi movies, because everything comes true. This is a Minority Report, where you are basically manipulating with gestures the digital reality. And this is, Tony Stark's, he's also manipulating and this is less than 10 years old, right? And this happened already, in real life. We have devices like the HoloLens, which I showed you before, which is my favorite device. I've been working with different companies, advising them on creating applications. So it's like a computer. And you see what I said about the spatial computing? You basically have a desktop, no limits. I can go to the next room and open a desktop, and go to the next room and open another desktop. And then I can manipulate the desktop with gestures, with my hands only, without having to touch anything. So if I'm a surgeon and if I'm operating, and this is translucent, I can see through. So if I'm a surgeon, I don't have to touch anything. I can just give voice commands or do gestures in order to interact with that computer. If I want to, see an image, a tomography or a resonance, MRI, I can just open it in front of me. So it's a fascinating device from Microsoft. And the second version, the second generation, is in the works, of course, and it's coming out within the next year or two. So it's really amazing to imagine, what's coming in the next few months. So this is a dissecting and anatomy learning lab, right? In the 1700s, right? I saw this picture and said, wow, this is, I give anything to be there, It's very similar to the way we do it today. You go to the best one in, Stanford or the best university in Brazil, their anatomy lab is very much the same as it was. And this is what caught my eye. Mortui vivos docent, right? The dead teaching the living. The dead people teaching the living. This is a picture of my grandfather in 1897 in Venezuela. He was a surgeon too. So my grandma gave me this picture and said, they're learning anatomy in this poor cadaver. Imagine the philosophical, the ethical, the sanitary, the financial implications of this type of learning, right? And so mortui vivos doesn't have to be. I really thought, well, how about technology vivos docent? How about if we have technology really helping us learn in a better way? Why not? Why do we have to use human cadavers? When we have amazing people who can really basically reproduce any reality that we want. So in surgery, we kind of have always said to learn surgery, first you see one, and then you do the next one, and then you teach the next one, right? So you want to be the third patient in someone's practice. If you are going to go to a new surgeon, you don't want to be the first patient. You want to be the third patient, yeah? So they are doing the surgery on you after they watched and they did one, right? But this is more or less obviously not true. But with a device like this, you can transform how you see one, and you can transform how you teach one. You have a device like this, and you can have multiple people using this device to learn anatomy and collaborate. And this is anatomically and physiologically correct. So it can really revolutionize the way we learn, the way we teach. And at Case Western Reserve and Microsoft, they're really having students really learn anatomy this way. Not just in a very small group, but a lot of the students, most of them are learning anatomy this way with a Microsoft HoloLens. This is a company that I advise in Bonn, in Germany. So they created this application to learn cardiac, heart problems, heart anatomy and heart physiology, and it's called Inside Heart, and the company is called Animaris. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. They are amazing web illustrators, but they got into the medical education form. And you can have a rendering of this heart in front of you floating in there. You can walk around this heart, right? And you can see the heart, and then you can interact with the heart, and you can go inside the heart, and you can see how the heart works and different conditions. And if you're a patient, and I tell you about things, you can maybe listen and forget. But if I put you the HoloLens, and you can feel the heart, and you can see the beating of the heart, and you can get inside the heart and see the blood flowing, that can radically change the way you learn about it. So other types of simulation with the HoloLens. This is CAE, it's a company in France, and they're using HoloLens to interact in real life with mannequins, with models that are physical, but they're connected to the mixed reality holographic HoloLens in order to improve learning. And so they have a simulation of a difficult delivery, right? A baby delivery. And it's something that is hard to learn by just listening or watching, but if you're actually doing it yourself in real life, you're putting the mother and the baby at danger, right? So if you can learn this in a way that it's almost real, but it's not, then you can potentially save, baby and mother's life by improving the way you learn about it. So you can see everything moving through the HoloLens holographically. So it's really a tool that potentially has immense impact in how we learn. To learn surgery, so we have digital atlases that we can do on the phone or on the computer. But if you actually put an immersive lens and you can immerse yourself in the actual surgery, and then you can have tools that are physical that you can manipulate, and they translate to the digital world, and you can actually feel when you go through the bone and you're putting a nail on the bone, and you can feel, you have haptics, the sense of touch in this device, in the actual Oculus or HTC device. That is something that really is there's nothing better than that except operating or learning to operate on someone's brain in this case. And you obviously don't want to do that. You want to see one, you want to do one, and you want to teach one. But this is the best way to really see and learn one. Immersive Touch is a company based in Chicago, and again, the novelty of this company was that they integrated physical tools, they can 3D print any tool, and you put the tools in your hands, and then you can see your hands digitally created, and the body, and you can actually feel the tissue as you are cutting, or as you are drilling, or as you are suctioning the blood from the tissue. It's really, really an amazing platform that is going to change how we learn surgery, for sure, learn procedures. So when we do imaging in medicine, we have 2D screens. 2D screens that can be a computer, can be a tablet, and we have the ability to 3D reconstruct those images, but still the screen is in 3D. So with these devices, you can actually have real 3D. You can have the ability to walk around the images and reconstruct them and create a 3D map that allows you to get a better mental picture of what you're going to tackle, what you're going to confront in the operating room. So any image that you can take with a tomography or with an MRI or plain X-rays, you can create in minutes in a holographic three-dimensional view. So again, it's just one way of doing medicine that we have never seen before. This company is called Medivis, and they do that. They do it for teaching, but they can also do it for diagnosis. So like I was saying, is see one, do one, and teach one. This is do one. So we are not there yet. We cannot align the digital image to the actual physical body yet with enough precision to allow us to drill your brain, for example, your cranium, or to cut on you, just looking at the image, digital image. We have to still go a little farther, but I'm pretty sure because technology develops exponentially that we are going to get there within the next year or two. And these are groundbreakers. This is the people, the pioneers, who are making this happen. This is happening all over the world. This is neurosurgery in the US, but you have people in Germany, you have people in France who's doing this. They're using HoloLens, and basically they're doing the same thing. They are pairing the digital images to the actual patient image. And if you remember the cube in the first augmented reality glass in MIT in the 60s, this is the same cube. So they've been brewing that idea for years and years and years, but now it's to a point which is like science fiction. So again, we're not there yet in regards to doing the surgery in augmented reality, but I'm pretty sure we'll get there, very, very, very soon. This is people doing spinal surgery. Spinal surgery is one of the surgeries that we already do with the help of digital tools very much. We have iScopies and Stryker, and we have tools that can guide us, systems that are somewhat using artificial intelligence to guide us to do better, more precise surgery. But this is using these technologies in order to make it even better than what it is right now. And then again, Animaris, they have the same technology, but on the phone. When the iPhone 8 and 10 came out, the AR Core or the AR kit for Android phones, they said, why not, I'm going to show you that again, why not do the same digital 3D reconstruction in your device? So everyone has the ability to, so imagine if I'm in the middle of a trauma, in a trauma bay in the emergency department, and I have the x-rays, rather than having to go to a computer and opening the system, the packs, and look at the images, I can have them on my tablet or my phone, and I can look at the images in any angle. It's not tomography that is axial or coronal or sagittal. I can do any angle that I want just from a smartphone. So again, that's exponential technology. Now, Oculus created this immersive tool that I told you about, and this company, Surgical Theater, said, why don't we put a magnetic resonance in Oculus so that you can put the goggle on, and you can have the same anatomy, but you don't have it in a 2D or even a 3D function, but in a 4D. So you put the actual goggles on, and you can walk inside the patient's brain. And if you're a surgeon and you have to, let's say, clip an aneurysm or take a tumor out of a certain part of the brain, and if you can get a mental map that is augmented exponentially by the use of these technologies, rather than looking at a computer and trying to imagine, or maybe during the surgery you can see but if you walk a fantastic voyage, almost like the old movie, inside the patient's brain. But also imagine the patient, when you can tell the patient, okay, you have an aneurysm in the posterior communicating artery. Well, if you can put the goggles on the patient, and the patient can then understand for the first time, and walk inside their own brains, and then see where exactly this is, the problem is, that is really, really, I think, something revolutionary. So, global health access, there's a crisis on that as well. It's about 5 billion people in the world that don't have access to safe surgery. And that's a gross number, but more than almost 2/3 of the world population don't have access to the same health care that we all imagine as a standard, right? And that is a real problem. And these technologies can certainly ameliorate that problem. If we use these technologies in a smart way, we can help those surgeons doing surgeries in tents, in war zones, in rural areas, or in countries. These are shameful pictures of, these two next pictures are in Venezuela. Imagine that. This is a hospital in Venezuela, the country with the largest oil reserves, crude oil reserves in the world, and this is the hospital, using, imagine how you can improve on healthcare in places like this if you use technology in a smart fashion. is worse than a prison in the worst countries. So those places is where most medicine happen, right, in the world. And the rural medicine, is being transformed with these technologies. This company is based in the UK and in Silicon Valley. It's called Proximi. And I was explaining to someone before, they can use augmented reality to help guide surgeons remotely, not by voice, not by video only, but with augmented reality. So this is surgery in Peru, and these doctors who kind of know how to do it, but they're not really the experts. They're connecting with another doctor in the UK, and the doctor in the UK is not just video conferencing with them, but the doctor can bring their own hand inside the surgical field, which is being filmed with a screen, so the surgeons operating can see the image from their camera, and they can see the doctor's hand telling them where to cut or where not to cut. So it's really, really an amazing tool to augment the access of healthcare to providers who don't have that much experience, and also to augment the ability to teach and to educate, for a surgeon who is an expert. You see, you have that camera, and that camera, once the surgeon puts the hand in the field of the camera, the actual hand, not a pointer, but the actual hand can, guide the other surgeon, remotely. So they have used it also with robotic surgery, for example. Robotic surgery, as you know, is a pretty interesting surgery. It's high technology, but it's not really that radically different. If you think about the fact that technology has been out for about almost 15, almost 20 years, and it still hasn't changed much. But if you can bring the surgeon's hand in that screen, the blue hand is the surgeon's hand, and they're guiding where to go, where to cut, or where not to cut. They really see they can draw in those areas of danger, so the surgeon does a better surgery. One of the causes of healthcare errors is communication. I think that communication and connectivity are really the main drivers of errors in healthcare. In the US only, we have 400,000 people who die every year from errors that are preventable. Imagine that, 400,000. And some